I, 28F, stood beside my new husband, Liam, 30M, my hand resting on his arm. The garden was lit with fairy lights, and the soft chatter of our closest friends and family filled the evening air. It was our engagement party, a celebration that was supposed to be perfect. My father, Richard, stood up, tapping a wine glass with a spoon. The gentle clinking sound silenced the crowd. He was a man who commanded attention without ever having to raise his voice. He had a presence that filled every room he entered, a weight that I had felt my entire life. "I'd like to make a toast," he began, his voice smooth and confident. He smiled, a practiced, charming smile that he used in boardrooms and at dinner parties. It rarely reached his eyes. "To my daughter Clara, who has always made me proud." He paused, letting the words hang in the air. I felt a small, familiar warmth. It was the approval I had always sought. He then turned his gaze to Liam, who stood tall and proud next to me. My father's smile tightened just a fraction. "And to her husband," he continued, his voice dropping slightly, acquiring a sharper edge. "My ex-employee." The silence that followed was not respectful. It was thick, heavy, and suffocating. Every guest froze. The cheerful chatter died instantly. It felt as if all the air had been sucked out of the garden. The words echoed in the sudden quiet. My ex-employee. It was a label, a dismissal. It was a calculated move to diminish Liam, to put him in his place in front of everyone who mattered to us. I felt Liam's arm tense under my hand. His posture remained unchanged, but I knew him. I felt the shock and the hurt radiate from him like a wave of cold. My own smile was frozen on my face. My heart pounded in my chest, a frantic, trapped bird. I looked at my father, searching his face for any sign that it was a poorly landed joke, a simple mistake. There was none. His eyes held a glint of something cold and triumphant. He had done this on purpose. My mother, Helen, immediately went into damage control mode. She laughed a little too loudly, a brittle, nervous sound. "Oh, Richard, you and your sense of humor," she said, raising her own glass. "Always the businessman." To Clara and Liam. A few people echoed the toast uncertainly, their voices weak. The spell was broken, but the atmosphere was ruined. The magic of the evening had evaporated, replaced by a lingering, uncomfortable tension. The party limped along for another hour, but the joy was gone. People spoke in hushed tones, casting sympathetic glances toward Liam and me. I saw the pity in their eyes. I hated it. My father acted as if nothing had happened. He mingled, he laughed, he shook hands. He was the picture of the proud father of the bride-to-be. But I saw it for what it was. It was a power play. A public declaration that no matter who I married, I was still his daughter, and my husband would always be beneath him. The rest of the evening was a blur of forced smiles and polite goodbyes. All I wanted was to get Liam home, away from the prying eyes and the suffocating weight of my father's cruelty. The drive home was silent. I kept glancing over at Liam. He stared straight ahead, his jaw tight, his hands gripping the steering wheel. I reached out and put my hand on his, but he didn't respond. He felt distant, closed off. I knew he was hurting, and I felt a hot surge of anger toward my father. This was supposed to be one of the happiest nights of our lives. My father had deliberately and skillfully poisoned it. When we finally got inside our apartment, the silence stretched. I took off my shoes and turned to face him. "Liam," I started, my voice soft. "I am so sorry." He finally looked at me, and the composure he had maintained all evening crumbled. His eyes were filled with a deep, raw pain that made my own chest ache. "Why would he do that, Clara?" he asked, his voice rough with emotion. "In front of everyone. Why?" I didn't have an answer. "I don't know," I whispered, stepping closer to him. He can be like that. He likes to be in control." "In control?" Liam shook his head, a bitter laugh escaping his lips. "That wasn't about control. That was about humiliation. He wanted to make me feel small, and he succeeded." I wrapped my arms around him, holding him tightly. I could feel the tension in his shoulders, the rigid set of his spine. He didn't succeed, I said fiercely. Everyone there loves you. They saw what he did. They saw how cruel it was. They saw him put me in my place, Liam countered, his voice muffled against my shoulder. They saw him remind everyone that I used to work for him, that I wasn't good enough. The words, not good enough, hung in the air between us. I knew that was the heart of it. Liam had worked for my father's successful tech company for 5 years. He was brilliant, dedicated, and passionate. He had risen quickly. Then, about 6 months ago, he had quit. He told me he needed a change, that he wanted to work on his own projects, to build something for himself. I had supported him completely, proud of his courage. But the way my father had said ex-employee made it sound like a failure, like Liam had been fired or had left in disgrace. That's not true, I insisted, pulling back to look him in the eye. You left on your own terms. You're building something amazing. Liam looked away, his gaze falling to the floor. It's more complicated than that, Clara, he said quietly. I didn't just quit. A knot of unease formed in my stomach. What do you mean? I asked. You told me you wanted to leave to start your own thing. He finally met my eyes again, and I saw a flicker of something I hadn't seen before. It was a mix of resignation and anger. I did want to start my own thing, he said, but I didn't just walk away. Your father, he made it impossible for me to stay. This was new. Liam had always been discreet about his time at my father's company. He rarely spoke of the specifics of his work, citing confidentiality. But this was different. The public humiliation seemed to have broken through a wall he had carefully constructed. I realized in that moment that I didn't know the full story. My father hadn't just made a cruel joke. He had fired a warning shot, and the target was a secret Liam and I apparently didn't even share. I felt a chill run down my spine. The perfect evening was not only ruined, but it had also uncovered a crack in the very foundation of what I thought I knew about my husband's past and my father's character. What did he do, Liam? I pressed, my voice barely a whisper. You have to tell me. He took a deep breath, the sound shaky in the quiet room. He pushed me out, Liam said, his voice flat. He took my biggest project, the one I poured my heart and soul into for over a year, and he gave it to someone else. He told me I wasn't needed on it anymore. He sidelined me, Clara. He made my position pointless. The confession hung in the air, heavy and ugly. It wasn't just a job change. It was a betrayal. My father hadn't just been a difficult boss. He had actively sabotaged the man I loved. The toast wasn't a jab. It was a victory lap. He was gloating, and I had stood there and smiled, completely oblivious. A new feeling began to bubble up inside me, pushing past the shock and the sadness. It was a cold, hard anger. This was not something I could let go. This was a line that had been crossed, and there was no going back. I had to understand why, and I had to make it right. The next morning, the anger had settled into a grim resolve. I watched Liam pretend to be fine, making coffee and talking about his plans for the day, but the light in his eyes was gone. The confidence that I loved so much had been replaced by a quiet, wounded watchfulness. He was hurt, and he was trying to hide it for my sake. That only fueled my determination. My father owed us more than an apology. He owed Liam an explanation. I decided to start with my mother. She was the family peacekeeper, the one who always smoothed over my father's rough edges. She would try to downplay it, to make excuses, but she was also my mother. I hoped she would give me something, a reason, anything that made sense. I called her after Liam left for his co-working space. Hi, Mom, I said, trying to keep my voice even. Clara, darling, she answered, her tone bright and breezy, as if nothing had happened. I was just thinking about you. Wasn't it a lovely party? The lights in the garden were just magical. I didn't have the patience for pleasantries. Mom, we need to talk about Dad's toast. I said directly. There was a brief pause on the other end of the line. Oh, that, she said, her voice losing some of its cheer. Your father has a strange way of showing affection sometimes. You know how he is. He was just trying to be funny. It wasn't funny, Mom, I said, my grip tightening on my phone. It was cruel. Liam was humiliated. I was humiliated. Why would he do that? Don't be so dramatic. Clara, she chided gently. It was just a few words. Liam is a strong man. He can handle a little teasing from his father-in-law. Her dismissal felt like a splash of cold water. She was already rewriting the narrative, minimizing the damage. It wasn't teasing, I insisted. It was a deliberate attack. Liam told me what happened at the company. He said Dad pushed him out. The silence on the line was longer this time. When she finally spoke, her voice was strained. That's not the whole story, she said carefully. Liam was working on a very important project. Your father felt it needed a more experienced hand to guide it to completion. He didn't want Liam to fail. I scoffed. He didn't want Liam to fail? Mom, Liam is brilliant. Dad stole his project. That's what Liam said. Now, Clara, you're getting emotional, she said, her tone becoming condescending. You're hearing one side of the story. Your father had the company's best interests at heart. He has a responsibility to his shareholders, to all of his employees. Sometimes that means making difficult decisions. It was like talking to a corporate press release. She was spouting my father's rehearsed lines, the justifications he had probably fed her. This isn't about the company, I shot back. This is about my husband. My father sabotaged him and then gloated about it at our engagement party. And you're defending him. I am not defending him, she said, her voice rising. I am trying to help you see the bigger picture. Your father has always provided for us. For you. He gave Liam a wonderful opportunity. Perhaps Liam just wasn't ready for it. That's not your father's fault. I felt a wave of frustration so intense it made me dizzy. She was his enabler. She had spent a lifetime making his behavior acceptable, smoothing the path he stomped through everyone else's lives. Wasn't ready for it? I repeated, my voice shaking with anger. Mom, what was the project? What was it even about? Oh, I don't know the details, dear, she said dismissively. Something about data integration and market prediction. It's all very technical, way over my head. She paused, then added, Your father was just worried it was too ambitious for Liam's team. He brought in Martin's group to see it through. Martin. I knew that name. Martin was my father's loyal second-in-command, a man with no original ideas of his own, but who was an expert at executing my father's vision. If he was involved, it meant my father was controlling it directly. But she had said something else that snagged in my mind. Liam's team? I asked. Liam told me he was leading it alone. Was he? My mother said, sounding flustered. Oh, well, I must have misunderstood. You know how your father talks about work? It's all teams and synergy. The point is, he made a business decision. It wasn't personal. But it was personal. The toast had made that perfectly clear. And my mother had just given me the first inconsistency. Liam said he was leading the project. My mother, parroting my father, said it was a team effort that was too ambitious. It was a small detail, but it was a crack in their story. I knew my mother. When she got flustered, it meant she was hiding something. She was a terrible liar, which was why my father rarely trusted her with the full truth. He just gave her the palatable version, the one she could repeat to keep the peace. Okay, Mom, I said, my voice suddenly calm. The anger had cooled and hardened into something else. A plan. I have to go. Clara, wait, she said, sensing the shift in my tone. Don't do anything rash. Don't make this a bigger deal than it is. Think about the family. I am thinking about my family, I said quietly. My new family. Liam and me. I ended the call before she could reply. I stood in my kitchen, my mind racing. My mother's denial and flimsy excuses only confirmed my suspicions. This went deeper than a stolen project. My father had a reason for what he did, a motive that he was trying to conceal, and he was using my mother to spread a false narrative. I needed more than just Liam's word against my father's. I needed proof. I needed to know exactly what that project was and why it was so important that my father would resort to sabotage and public humiliation. I thought about who I could talk to. I couldn't go to anyone still at my father's company. Their loyalty would be to him. Their jobs would be on the line. I needed someone on the outside, someone who knew how my father operated but had nothing left to lose. My mind immediately went to my best friend, Maya. She had known me and my family for years. She had seen my father in action. She would be my anchor, the one person I could trust to be completely on my side. I called her. "Maya, I need you," I said, the moment she answered. "Clara? What's wrong?" "You sound awful," she said, her voice instantly filled with concern. I took a shaky breath and told her everything. I told her about the toast, the silence, the look on Liam's face. I told her about my conversation with Liam afterwards, about the stolen project. And I told her about my mother's pathetic attempt to cover for him. When I finished, there was a long pause. "Wow," Maya said finally. That's a new level of cruel, even for him." "I know," I said, my voice thick with emotion. "And the worst part is, I think there's more to it. He's hiding something, Maya. The way he did it, so publicly, it was a message. He was trying to discredit Liam for some reason." "Of course he was," Maya said, her voice sharp and practical. "Your dad doesn't do anything without a reason. This is about power. Liam was his employee. Then he became your fiancé. Your dad lost a subordinate, and in his mind, he lost a degree of control over you. He can't stand that." Her words resonated with the truth I had always known but never wanted to fully admit. My father saw people as assets to be managed. His daughter was his, and by extension, her partner should be under his influence as well. Liam leaving the company was an act of defiance. Marrying me was an even bigger one. "So what do I do?" I asked, feeling a little lost despite my resolve. "I can't let this go. I can't let him do this to Liam." "You fight back," Maya said simply. "But not his way. You don't get into a shouting match with him. You can't win that. He's been doing it his whole life. You need to be smarter. You need leverage." "Leverage," I repeated. The word felt foreign and cold. "What kind of leverage?" "Proof," she said. "You need to find out exactly what this project was. You need to find evidence that it was Liam's idea, that your dad stole it. You need something that he can't deny, something that would damage him if it came out." She was right. An emotional confrontation would get me nowhere. My father would twist my words, call me hysterical, and turn it around on me. I had seen him do it 100 times. But he was a businessman. He understood risk. He understood consequences. If I could present him with a threat to his reputation or his company, that was a language he would understand. "But how?" I asked. "Everyone at his company is loyal to him. No one will talk to me." "Someone will," Maya insisted. "There's always someone who's unhappy. Someone who got passed over for a promotion. Someone who your dad stepped on to get where he is. You just have to find them. Think, Clara. Who worked with Liam? Who was on his team?" My mother's words came back to me. Liam's team. She had let it slip. Liam had said he was working alone, but maybe he wasn't. Maybe there were other people involved. People who had seen what happened. My mom mentioned a team. I told Maya. Liam always said he was the lead, but maybe there were junior members. People who wouldn't be on my dad's radar. "Exactly," Maya said, her voice excited. "Find one of them. Someone who has already left the company if you can. Someone with no reason to be scared of him anymore." A name surfaced in my memory. David. He had been an intern or a junior analyst when Liam was there. I remembered Liam mentioning him once or twice, saying he was bright but quiet. I wasn't sure if he still worked there, but it was a start. It was a thread. I think I might know someone, I said slowly. His name is David. I don't know if he'll talk to me, but I can try to find him. Good, Maya said. Be careful, Clara. Be smart. Don't let your dad know what you're doing. You need to have everything in place before you make your move. This is a chess game now, and you need to be 3 steps ahead. After I hung up with Maya, I felt a renewed sense of purpose. She had given me a framework, a strategy. This wasn't just about my anger anymore. It was about justice for Liam. It was about taking back the power my father had tried to strip from us. I opened my laptop and typed David's name into the search bar of a professional networking site. A few profiles popped up. I scanned through them, looking for a face I recognized from an old company holiday party photo. And then I saw him. His profile picture was professional, but he had the same quiet, observant eyes I remembered. His current job status read, software engineer at a small startup. He had left my father's company 8 months ago, just a couple of months after Liam. He was the perfect candidate. He was free. My heart pounded as my cursor hovered over the connect button. This was the first real step. I was moving from anger to action. I took a deep breath and wrote a simple, non-threatening message. Hi, David. This is Clara, Richard's daughter. I know this is random, but I was hoping I could ask you a few questions about your time at the company. I'm trying to understand something that happened with a project Liam was working on. I hit send before I could second-guess myself. The message sat there, marked as delivered. Now all I could do was wait. I felt a strange mix of fear and exhilaration. I was stepping into a world I didn't understand, a world of corporate intrigue and hidden motives. But I was doing it for Liam. I was doing it for us. The game had begun, and for the first time, I felt like I might have a chance to play. The next 2 days were agonizing. I checked my phone constantly, waiting for a reply from David. Every notification made my heart leap, only to be followed by a pang of disappointment. I started to think he wouldn't answer. Maybe he was too scared. Maybe he just didn't want to get involved. Liam could tell something was on my mind. You're very quiet, he said on the second evening as we were clearing the dinner plates. Is everything okay? I forced a smile. Just tired, I lied. It's been a long week. I didn't want to tell him about my plan yet. I didn't want to give him false hope. If David didn't reply, if I couldn't find any proof, then telling Liam would only make him feel the betrayal all over again. I needed to have something solid before I brought him into it. Okay, he said, but he looked at me with concern in his eyes. He knew me too well. If you need to talk, I'm here. I know, I said, giving him a quick kiss. I love you. I love you too, he replied, but the shadow of my father's toast still lingered between us. That night, just as I was about to give up hope, my phone buzzed. It was a message from David. My breath caught in my throat. I opened it with trembling hands. Hi, Clara, it read. I'm not sure what I can tell you. I signed a lot of paperwork when I left. I don't want any trouble. It was a rejection, but it wasn't a firm one. He didn't say no. He said he was scared. That was something I could work with. I quickly typed back. I understand completely. I'm not trying to cause trouble for you. This is personal. It's about what happened to Liam. My father's actions have been very hurtful to my family, and I'm just trying to get some clarity. Anything you could tell me would be completely confidential. I would never use your name. I tried to appeal to his sense of fairness, his memory of Liam. Liam had been a good boss, a mentor to the younger staff. I was counting on that. I waited, my stomach in knots. A few minutes later, 3 dots appeared. He was typing. Liam was a good guy. The message came through. He didn't deserve what happened. My heart soared. This was it. He knew. No, he didn't. I typed back immediately. Could we talk? On the phone, or we could meet for coffee. Whatever you're comfortable with. Please, David, it's really important. There was another long pause. I could almost feel his hesitation through the screen. He was weighing the risk against his conscience. Finally, a new message appeared. Okay, coffee, but somewhere quiet, and not near my office or your dad's. We agreed to meet the next afternoon at a small, independent coffee shop in a neighborhood neither of us frequented. I spent the rest of the night rehearsing what I would say, how I would ask the questions without sounding like an interrogator. I needed him to trust me. The next day, I was so nervous I could barely eat. I chose a small table in the back corner of the coffee shop, my back to the wall so I could see the entrance. David arrived exactly on time. He looked just like his photo, thin and serious, with glasses perched on his nose. He scanned the room nervously before he saw me and quickly walked over. "Hi," he said, not meeting my eye as he sat down. "Thanks for agreeing to this." "No, thank you for coming," I said gently. "I really appreciate it. Can I get you a coffee?" "I'm fine," he said, fidgeting with the strap of his messenger bag. "So, what did you want to ask?" I decided to be direct. "I want to know about the project Liam was working on before he left," I said. "The one your team was involved with?" David's eyes darted around the coffee shop. "We called it Project Chimera," he said in a low voice. "It was Liam's baby. He came up with the whole concept. It was a predictive analytics engine. The idea was to analyze market data, social media trends, and economic indicators to predict consumer behavior with a high degree of accuracy. It was revolutionary. Nothing like it existed." Hearing him describe it, I felt a surge of pride for Liam, quickly followed by a fresh wave of anger at my father. "Liam told me he was leading it," I said. "My mother mentioned a team." David nodded. "It was his project. He was the architect. I was one of 2 junior analysts he brought on to help with the data processing and algorithm testing. We were a small, tight-knit group. It was the most exciting work I've ever done." He paused, a flicker of that old excitement in his eyes. Then it vanished, replaced by a guarded look. For a while, anyway. "What happened?" I prompted softly. He took a deep breath. "It started working," he said. "The initial tests were incredible. The predictions were more accurate than we ever could have hoped. Liam was ecstatic. He prepared a presentation for your father to show him the results and ask for more resources to scale it up." "And what did my father say?" David looked down at his hands. He was impressed. Too impressed. After that meeting, everything changed. Your father started having private meetings about Chimera, but Liam wasn't invited. He started bringing in other people from Martin's department, to consult. He said it was too important to be siloed in one small team. This matched what my mother had said, but hearing it from David gave it a sinister edge. "He was cutting Liam out," I said. "Exactly," David confirmed. Slowly at first. He'd ask for reports, but he'd ask for them from Martin instead of Liam. He'd reassign small parts of the project to other teams, saying it was for efficiency. Liam fought back. He argued that the project needed a unified vision. His vision. He told your father that breaking it up would compromise the integrity of the algorithm. He was right. And my father didn't listen. It wasn't a question. He didn't care, David said bitterly. One day, Liam's access to the project server was revoked. Just like that. No warning. He went to your father, and your father told him that the project was being restructured, and his leadership was no longer required. He offered him a lateral move to another department, working on some boring legacy software. It was a massive insult. I felt sick. It was a systematic, calculated dismantling of Liam's career and his creation. So Liam quit, I said. He had no choice, David said. He was pushed out. After he left, your father put Martin in charge of Chimera. They're still working on it. I hear they're planning a big launch soon. They're going to present it as your father's grand innovation, the next big thing for the company. The pieces clicked into place. The toast. The public humiliation. It was all part of a campaign. My father had stolen Liam's work and was now trying to destroy his credibility. If Liam ever tried to claim the project as his own, who would believe him? He was just a bitter ex-employee. My father, the visionary CEO, would be celebrated for his genius. "This is worse than I thought," I whispered, the full scope of the betrayal settling in. David looked at me, and for the first time, I saw a flash of anger in his quiet eyes. "Your father is a brilliant man, Clara," he said. "But he's also ruthless. He takes what he wants. And he's very good at making sure he gets all the credit." I leaned forward, my voice urgent. "David, is there any proof? Anything that shows this was Liam's project from the start? Emails? Documents? Anything with his name on it?" He hesitated, his gaze dropping back to his bag. He was scared again. "I shouldn't have any of that," he said slowly. "We were supposed to delete everything when we left." "But did you?" I pressed, holding my breath. He was silent for a long moment. He looked up at me, his expression unreadable. "Liam was my mentor," he said quietly. "He taught me more in a year than I learned in all of college. What your father did was wrong." He reached into his messenger bag and pulled out a small encrypted flash drive. He slid it across the table toward me. "I kept backups," he said, his voice barely audible. "Early drafts of the project proposal, the initial architecture diagrams, email chains from the first few months. It's all there. It all has Liam's name on it. It has the metadata. It proves he was the creator." I stared at the flash drive. It was small and black, but it felt as heavy as a brick. It was the leverage Maya had talked about. It was the proof I needed. It was a weapon. "David," I said, my voice thick with gratitude. I don't know how to thank you." "Don't thank me," he said, standing up abruptly. "Just be careful. Your father is a powerful man. He doesn't like to lose." He turned and walked out of the coffee shop without looking back, leaving me alone with the flash drive and the heavy weight of what I had to do next. I sat there for a long time, just looking at the flash drive. It represented a choice. I could take this information and confront my father privately, hoping for an apology and some kind of quiet resolution. Or I could use it to do what Maya had suggested, to create a situation where he had no choice but to face public consequences for his actions. My father had chosen a public stage for his attack on Liam. It felt only right that he should face his reckoning on one as well. The thought of what I was about to do was terrifying. This wasn't just about a corporate dispute. This was about my family. A confrontation with my father would have consequences that would ripple through all of our lives. It could destroy my relationship with him forever. It could put my mother in an impossible position. But then I thought of Liam's face at the party, the way the light had gone out of his eyes. I thought of him working tirelessly on something he loved, only to have it stolen by the man who was supposed to welcome him into his family. My father had made this personal. He had left me no other choice. I picked up the flash drive and put it in my purse. My fear was still there, but underneath it, my resolve had hardened into steel. David was right. My father didn't like to lose. I was about to find out if I was truly his daughter. When I got home, I didn't say anything to Liam right away. I needed to see what was on the drive first, to understand the full extent of the evidence. I went into my home office and closed the door, my heart hammering against my ribs. I plugged the flash drive into my laptop. It was password protected. A note in a text file on the drive gave me the password: Chimera V1 Alpha. David was thorough. I entered the password and a folder opened up. It was meticulously organized. There were subfolders for proposals, architecture, emails, and early code. I clicked on proposals first. There were 3 documents inside. The first was titled Project Chimera, Initial Concept, L. Evans, Liam Evans. It was dated almost 2 years ago. I opened it. It was a 10-page document outlining the entire vision for the predictive analytics engine, just as David had described. Liam's writing was clear, passionate, and brilliant. He talked about the potential to revolutionize marketing, supply chain management, even public policy. It was undeniably his. The metadata on the file confirmed it. Author: Liam Evans. Created. Date. There was no ambiguity. I felt a grim satisfaction. This was the origin story my father had tried to erase. Next, I went to the emails folder. It was a treasure trove. There were dozens of email chains. The early ones were between Liam, David, and the other junior analyst, full of excitement and technical jargon as they worked through the initial problems. Then there were the emails between Liam and my father. The tone shifted dramatically over time. At first, my father was encouraging. "Fascinating work, Liam. Keep me posted on your progress." Then, after Liam's big presentation, the tone changed. "I've asked Martin to sit in on your next progress meeting. His team has experience with large-scale data implementation." Liam's replies became more and more defensive. "With all due respect, Richard, bringing in another team at this stage will only slow us down. The architecture is delicate." My father's responses were dismissive. "I'm not asking, Liam. I'm telling you. We need to ensure this project is robust. Let's not let ego get in the way of success." The final email from Liam was heartbreaking. "Richard, I cannot continue to work on a project where my expertise is being ignored and my role has been made redundant. Revoking my access without any discussion was unprofessional and deeply disrespectful. This is not a restructuring. You are stealing my work." My father's reply was cold and clinical. It was forwarded to HR. "Please see below. Liam Evans has indicated his desire to resign his position. Please process his exit paperwork." He had twisted Liam's protest into a resignation. It was a masterclass in corporate gaslighting. I sat back in my chair, stunned. The evidence was overwhelming. It was a clear-cut case of intellectual property theft, orchestrated by my own father against the man I was going to marry. The sheer audacity and cruelty of it took my breath away. He hadn't just pushed Liam out. He had engineered the entire situation to look like Liam had quit in a huff, all while he was methodically taking possession of his most valuable creation. Now I knew I had to tell Liam. He deserved to see this. He deserved to know that he wasn't crazy, that what he had suspected was true, and that I had the proof. I closed the laptop and went to find him. He was in the living room reading a book, but he wasn't really reading. He was just staring at the page. "Liam," I said softly, sitting down next to him. "We need to talk. I found something out. About my father." He looked up, his expression wary. "What is it?" "I spoke to David," I said, "from your old team." Liam's eyes widened slightly. "David? How did you find him?" "I looked him up," I said. "He agreed to talk to me. He told me everything, Liam. About Project Chimera. About how Dad cut you out. How he gave it to Martin." Liam let out a long, slow breath and closed his book. He looked defeated. "So I was right," he said quietly. "I wasn't just being paranoid." "You weren't," I said, my voice firm. "He stole it from you. And Liam, David gave me something." I paused, gathering my courage. "He gave me proof. Emails, proposals, diagrams, everything from the beginning. It's all on a flash drive. It proves Chimera was your idea, your work." Liam stared at me, his expression shifting from resignation to disbelief. "Proof?" he repeated, as if he couldn't comprehend the word. "He has proof?" "Yes," I said. "I've seen it. It's undeniable. The original proposal has your name on it. The emails show exactly how he pushed you out and then framed it as you resigning." For a moment, Liam was silent. He just looked at me, his eyes searching mine. Then a single tear traced a path down his cheek. He quickly wiped it away, but I had seen it. It was a tear of vindication, of relief, of a wound finally being acknowledged. All this time, he whispered. I thought I was going crazy. I thought I had somehow failed, that I had let him get the better of me. You didn't fail, I said, taking his hand. He cheated, he stole from you, and now we can prove it. A new light started to dawn in his eyes, replacing the hurt. It was a spark of anger, of defiance. What are you going to do? He asked. This was the moment of truth. I had to know he was with me. I have a plan, I said slowly. But it's not quiet. And it's not private. He humiliated you publicly. I think he needs to be held accountable publicly. I told him what David had said, that my father was planning a big launch event for Chimera, presenting it as his own innovation. That's where we do it, I said. At his moment of triumph. We turn it into his moment of reckoning. Liam listened, his expression growing more intense with every word. I could see the idea taking root. The thought of reclaiming his work, of exposing my father's lies, was a powerful one. But I could also see the hesitation. This was my father, after all. Clara, this would be declaring war on him, he said, his voice low. Are you sure you want to do that? He's your dad. He stopped acting like my dad when he did this to you, I said fiercely. He made his choice. Now I'm making mine. I choose you. I choose us. But I won't do it without you. We do this together or we don't do it at all. He looked at our joined hands, then back up at my face. He saw the determination in my eyes, the unwavering loyalty. A slow smile spread across his face, the first genuine smile I had seen since the party. It was the smile I had fallen in love with, full of confidence and strength. Okay, he said, his voice firm and clear. Let's do it. Let's show him what a real team looks like. In that moment, we were united. We were a partnership. The sadness that had filled our apartment for days was replaced by a shared sense of purpose. My father had tried to drive a wedge between us, to isolate and diminish Liam. Instead, he had forged us into a team, stronger and more determined than ever. We spent the rest of the evening planning, strategizing. We were no longer victims of his cruelty. We were architects of his downfall. The first step in our plan was to find out when the launch event for Project Chimera was happening. Liam, through his own network of contacts, found out it was scheduled in 3 weeks. It was a major company event, a showcase for investors and the tech press. My father was going to be the keynote speaker. It was the perfect stage. Our next step was to amplify our leverage. The flash drive from David was our smoking gun, but we needed to make sure its impact was maximized. I called Maya and told her everything. Oh my God, Clara, she breathed when I told her about the flash drive. You have him. You actually have him. I have him, I confirmed. But I need to use it correctly. He's going to present Chimera as his own at this big event in 3 weeks. That's where we'll make our move. Good, she said, her mind already working. You can't just leak it to a blog. That's messy. He could spin it. You need a credible mainstream outlet. Someone who will do their due diligence and publish a story that he can't just dismiss. She paused. I know someone. A journalist named Sarah Jenkins. She's tough but fair. She specializes in corporate ethics and tech. If you give her this story with this proof, she'll sink her teeth into it and not let go. Can you make an introduction? I asked. I can do better than that, Maya said. I'll set up a meeting. But we do it carefully. We give her the story, but we ask her to hold it until the day of the event. We want the bomb to drop at the exact moment it will do the most damage. While Maya worked on connecting with the journalist, Liam and I focused on another front. The board of directors. My father was the CEO, but he wasn't a king. He answered to a board. If they knew he had stolen a flagship project and was lying to them and to investors, they would have to act. I know a couple of the board members, Liam said. At least I know who they are. One of them, a woman named Eleanor Vance, always seemed reasonable. She asks sharp questions in meetings. I don't think she's just a yes man for your dad. We decided that Eleanor Vance would be our target. We would prepare a package for her, a summary of the evidence, and send it to her the morning of the event. It would arrive just as Sarah Jenkins's article was published. My father would be caught in a pincer movement, attacked from the outside by the press and from the inside by his own board. The 3 weeks leading up to the event were the most intense of my life. Liam and I worked in secret, gathering everything we needed. We made copies of the flash drive. We wrote a clear, concise timeline of events, referencing the specific emails and documents as evidence. We prepared 2 packages, one for the journalist, Sarah Jenkins, and one for the board member, Eleanor Vance. We met with Sarah in a discreet law office that Maya had arranged. She was exactly as Maya had described her, sharp, focused, and immediately grasping the significance of the story. She listened intently as Liam and I walked her through the evidence. She looked at the documents, her eyes scanning them quickly, absorbing the details. "This is incredibly damning," she said after reviewing the key files. "The metadata, the email chains. You have a very strong case. He won't be able to talk his way out of this." She looked at us. "I'll take the story, and I'll honor your request to publish it on the morning of the launch. This is going to cause a massive fallout." Leaving that meeting, I felt a tremor of fear, but also a surge of adrenaline. There was no turning back now. We had set the wheels in motion. A few days before the event, I got a call from my mother. Her voice was cheerful, but there was an underlying note of anxiety. "Clara, darling, your father is so excited about his big presentation on Tuesday. I hope you and Liam will be there in the front row to support him." The request was so audacious, so completely tone-deaf that I almost laughed. "We'll be there, Mom," I said, my voice carefully neutral. "Oh, good," she said, relieved. "It means so much to him to have his family there. You know, this new project. He says it's going to be his legacy." "His legacy," I repeated, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. "I'm sure it will be." The night before the event, neither Liam nor I could sleep. We sat in our living room, the evidence packages ready to be sent in the morning. The weight of what we were about to do pressed down on us. "Are we really doing this?" Liam asked, his voice quiet in the darkness. "We're about to blow up your family." I looked at him, at the man I loved, who had been so wronged by my own father. "He blew up our family the moment he decided to betray you," I said. "We're just exposing the truth. Whatever happens tomorrow, we'll face it together." He nodded, taking my hand. "Together," he echoed. The next morning, we put our plan into action. At 8 a.m. sharp, Maya sent the package to Sarah Jenkins's editor. At the same time, Liam sent the package to Eleanor Vance via a secure courier, marked strictly private and confidential. Then we got ready. We dressed not for a celebration, but for a battle. I chose a simple, severe black dress. Liam wore a dark suit. We were a united front. We arrived at the convention center where the event was being held. The ballroom was packed. There were hundreds of people: employees, investors, analysts, and journalists. The air was buzzing with anticipation. My father's company had hyped this announcement for weeks. We saw my mother near the front, saving 2 seats for us. She waved us over, beaming. "There you are," she said, giving me a hug. "You both look wonderful. Isn't this exciting?" "It's going to be an unforgettable day," I said, my voice tight. We took our seats. My phone buzzed in my purse. It was a text from Maya. "It's live." I subtly pulled out my phone. The headline of Sarah's article was stark. "Tech CEO Richard Miller accused of stealing flagship project from former employee." My heart pounded. It was real. All around the room, I could see phones lighting up as people got the news alert. A low murmur started to spread through the crowd, replacing the excited buzz. My mother noticed the shift. "What's going on?" she whispered to me. "Why is everyone on their phones?" Before I could answer, one of my father's assistants rushed over to him, who was standing by the side of the stage. The assistant showed him something on a tablet. I watched my father's face. His confident smile vanished. It was replaced by a look of pure, unadulterated fury. He looked out into the crowd, his eyes scanning, and they landed on me. For a split second, our gazes locked. In his eyes, I saw not just anger, but betrayal. It was almost comical. He felt betrayed by me. Another assistant came over, whispering frantically to him. The event was supposed to start. The lights dimmed. A pre-recorded video started playing on the giant screens, full of dramatic music and corporate buzzwords about innovation and vision. But no one was watching it. They were all reading the article, whispering to their neighbors. The atmosphere in the room had turned from celebratory to toxic. My father had no choice. He had to go on stage. He walked to the podium, his posture rigid. The polite applause that greeted him was sparse and hesitant. He looked out at the sea of faces, at the hundreds of people who were now looking at him not with admiration, but with suspicion and judgment. "Good morning," he began, his voice strained. He tried to stick to his script, to talk about the future and the exciting new chapter for the company. But the words sounded hollow. He knew, and everyone in the room knew, that a bomb had just gone off. As he was speaking, I saw Eleanor Vance, the board member, enter the room from a side door. She was on her phone, her expression grim. She was followed by two other men I recognized from the company's board. They weren't there to watch the show. They were there to handle a crisis. My father faltered. He lost his place in his speech. He could feel the room turning against him. He tried to address the elephant in the room, but he did it with his usual arrogance. "I'm sure some of you have seen a malicious and unfounded article that was published this morning," he said, his voice dripping with contempt. "It is a desperate attempt by a disgruntled former employee to discredit our company's hard work. These claims are baseless, and we will be pursuing legal action." It was a bold lie, but it was too late. The proof was already out there. As he spoke, my phone buzzed again. It was a text from an unknown number. "This is Eleanor Vance. We need to talk. Now." I showed the text to Liam. He nodded. This was it. The second wave of the attack was about to hit. I stood up. My mother grabbed my arm. "Clara, what are you doing? Sit down," she hissed, her face pale with panic. "I have to take this," I said, pulling my arm away. I walked out of the ballroom and into the lobby where Eleanor Vance was waiting with the other two board members. She didn't waste time with pleasantries. "The information you sent me," she said, her voice cold and hard. "Is it all true?" "Every word," I said. "The flash drive has all the original files. The metadata is verifiable. The email chains are complete." The three of them exchanged a look. "Richard is on that stage right now calling your husband a liar," one of the men said. "I know," I replied, "but he's the one who's lying. To his employees, to his investors, and to his board." Eleanor Vance looked at me, her gaze piercing. "What do you want, Clara?" This was the moment I had been preparing for. I could have asked for money, for a settlement, but that's not what this was about. "I want two things," I said, my voice steady and clear. "First, I want a public statement from the board acknowledging that Liam Evans was the original creator of Project Chimera. He deserves the credit for his work. Second, Liam is to be given full ownership of the intellectual property. The company will relinquish all claims to it. He will walk away with his creation. Free and clear." It was a bold demand. I was asking them to give away what they thought was their next billion-dollar idea. Eleanor didn't even blink. "And if we agree?" "Then we consider the matter settled," I said. "Liam has no interest in suing the company. He just wants what is rightfully his." "And if we don't agree?" the other man asked. I gave them a cold smile. "Then the flash drive I sent you gets sent to every major tech journalist in the country. And the lawsuit Liam files won't just be about intellectual property theft. It will be about fraud. That will do a lot more damage to your stock price than just admitting the truth." I am in control now. My voice does not shake. I am not the scared daughter anymore. I am the one holding all the cards. They know it. I can see it in their eyes. The bluster is gone, replaced by cold, hard calculation. Eleanor Vance looked at her colleagues. They had a brief, silent conversation with just their eyes. She then turned back to me. "Wait here," she said. The three of them walked back into the ballroom. I stood alone in the lobby, my heart pounding. I had done it. I had delivered the ultimatum. Now, I had to wait and see if he would break or if he would try to fight. A few minutes later, the side door opened again. It was my mother. Her face was a mask of fury and disbelief. "What have you done?" she whispered, her voice trembling. "How could you do this to your father, to your own family?" "He did this, Mom," I said, my voice hard. "He did this to Liam, and he did this to us. I'm just the one who turned on the lights so everyone could see the truth." "The truth?" she scoffed. "You've ruined him. The board just pulled him off the stage, in the middle of his speech. They're taking him into a private room. This is your fault." "It's his fault," I repeated, my voice like ice. "You had a choice, Mom. You could have stood up for what was right. You could have told him not to hurt Liam, but you didn't. You made excuses. You chose to stand with him. So this is your fault, too." Her face crumpled. She looked at me as if she was seeing a stranger. The daughter she thought she could control, the one who would always help her keep the peace, was gone. "I don't know who you are anymore," she whispered. "I know exactly who I am," I said. "I'm the person who protects her family." The ballroom door opened a third time and Eleanor Vance emerged. She walked straight past my mother and stopped in front of me. "The board has had a discussion with Richard," she said, her voice formal and devoid of emotion. "He has agreed to your terms." I felt a wave of relief so powerful it almost made my knees buckle. We had won. "He will be taking an immediate and indefinite leave of absence," Eleanor continued. "The board will issue a statement this afternoon. It will credit Mr. Evans as the creator of the Chimera technology and state that the company is relinquishing all intellectual property rights to him as part of a mutual agreement." It was more than I had hoped for. A leave of absence. They were pushing him out. "Thank you," I said, my voice hoarse. "Don't thank me," she said, her expression unyielding. "You exposed a serious ethical breach. We are simply protecting the company and our shareholders. Your father made a grave error in judgment. He underestimated you." She gave a curt nod and walked away, her focus already on the damage control that lay ahead. My mother was still standing there, looking lost. The world she had so carefully maintained, a world where her husband was always right and always powerful, had just been shattered. I looked at her, and for a moment I felt a pang of pity. But it was quickly replaced by the memory of her words on the phone, her dismissiveness, her complicity. She had made her choice. I turned and walked back into the ballroom. It was in chaos. People were standing in groups, talking animatedly. Liam was waiting for me, right where I had left him. He had seen my father get pulled off stage. He had seen the board members. He knew. When he saw me, his face broke into a wide smile of pure relief and triumph. He rushed to me and wrapped me in his arms, lifting me off the ground. "You did it," he whispered into my ear. "You actually did it." "We did it," I corrected him, burying my face in his shoulder. All the tension, all the fear of the past few weeks finally washed away, replaced by an overwhelming sense of victory. We had faced the giant, and we had won. The fallout was swift and brutal. The board statement was released that afternoon. The tech world was stunned. Richard Miller, the celebrated visionary, was a fraud. His indefinite leave of absence was quickly understood to be a forced resignation. He was disgraced. The first call I got was from a board member, not Eleanor, but one of the men who had been with her. His name was Mr. Harris. His tone was professional, but I could hear the undercurrent of respect. He was calling to confirm the legal details of the IP transfer. The lawyers are drafting the paperwork now, Mrs. Evans, he said. He called me Mrs. Evans. It felt significant. It will state that all rights, patents, and code related to Project Chimera are transferred to Liam Evans, effective immediately. Thank you, Mr. Harris, I said. We appreciate the board's swift action on this. Your husband is a brilliant man, he said, and it sounded genuine. Your father should have nurtured that talent, not tried to steal it. The board wishes Mr. Evans the best of luck in his future endeavors. It was a formal corporate way of saying, we're sorry, and please don't sue us. But it was also an acknowledgement of Liam's talent, a public restoration of his honor. The next call was the one I was dreading. My mother. She had gone home with my father. I could hear her crying before she even said hello. Clara, she sobbed. He's destroyed. He won't come out of his study. You've broken him. I took a deep breath, steeling myself. I had already played this scene in my head a dozen times. Mom, he broke himself, I said, my voice firm but not unkind. He made a choice. He chose to steal from Liam, to lie, to humiliate him. These are the consequences of his actions. But he's your father, she cried. Families are supposed to support each other, forgive each other. I agree, I said. And Liam is my family. Dad attacked my family. What was I supposed to do? Let him? Stand by and watch him destroy the man I love for his own ego? Is that what you would have done? She was silent, the question hanging in the air. She had no answer, because the answer was yes. That is exactly what she had done her entire life. Stand by and let him. You have to fix this, Clara, she pleaded. Call the board. Tell them you made a mistake. Tell them you were emotional. I felt a cold certainty settle over me. This was the chasm between us, the one that could never be crossed. She still didn't get it. She still thought this was a tantrum I could take back. No, Mom, I said, my voice quiet but final. I will not do that. This is not a mistake, it's a correction. Dad needs to understand that there are consequences, and you need to decide whose side you're on. You can continue to enable his behavior, or you can start demanding better from him. But what you can't do is ask me to light myself on fire to keep him warm. Those days are over. I heard a sharp intake of breath on her end. I had set a boundary, a real one, for the first time in my life. I have to go, Mom, I said, before she could argue. I ended the call. My hand was shaking, but my heart was steady. It hurt, but it was a clean pain, like setting a broken bone. It was necessary. The best call came that evening. Liam's phone rang. It was a number he didn't recognize. He answered it cautiously. I watched his face as he listened. His eyes widened and he sat up straighter. Yes, he said. Yes, I am. He listened for another minute, a slow smile spreading across his face. Yes, I would be very interested in that. When would be a good time to meet? When he hung up, he looked at me, his eyes shining with an excitement I hadn't seen in months. That was the CEO of Omnitech, he said, naming one of our father's biggest competitors. He read the article. He called Chimera a game changer. He wants to meet with me. He's not interested in buying the technology. He wants to fund me. He wants to give me my own lab, my own team, and full autonomy to build it out. He wants to invest in me. I threw my arms around him. Liam, that's amazing. It was more than justice. It was an opportunity, a bigger and better one than he ever would have had under my father's thumb. My father had tried to bury him, but he had forgotten that Liam was a seed. In the weeks that followed, our lives were transformed. Liam met with Omnitech, and they quickly drew up a contract that was more generous than he could have ever imagined. He was no longer just an ex-employee. He was the founder of a well-funded, cutting-edge tech venture. He started hiring his own team, including, as his first official employee, David. My relationship with my parents, on the other hand, was fractured, perhaps irreparably. My father refused to speak to me. He remained in his self-imposed exile. a fallen king in his own home. My mother called a few more times, her calls oscillating between tearful pleading and angry accusations. I remained firm, repeating my boundary each time. Eventually, her calls became less frequent. The silence was painful, but it was also peaceful. I was no longer caught in the exhausting cycle of seeking his approval and managing his moods. About 2 months after the event, Liam and I were in our apartment, packing the last of our things. With his new venture taking off, we had decided to buy a house closer to his new office. It felt like a real start. A home that was truly ours with no ghosts of the past. I was taping up a box of books when Liam came and stood in the doorway, a bottle of champagne and 2 glasses in his hand. "I think this calls for a celebration," he said, his eyes twinkling. "What are we celebrating?" I asked, smiling. "The end of packing?" "That," he said, "and this." He handed me his phone. It was a news alert. Richard Miller officially retires from Miller Corp., sells majority stake. The article detailed how he had been forced out and how, with his reputation in tatters, he had no choice but to cash out and disappear from the industry he had once dominated. He was gone. He had lost his company, his legacy, and his power. I handed the phone back to Liam. I felt no joy, no triumphant glee, just a quiet sense of finality. It was over. Liam popped the cork on the champagne and poured 2 glasses. He handed one to me and raised his. He looked at me, his expression full of love and gratitude. "I have a toast," he said. I braced myself, a ghost of a memory tensing my shoulders. He saw it and his smile softened. "To my wife," he said, his voice full of warmth and pride. "My partner, the woman who taught me that sometimes the most important thing you can build isn't a piece of technology. It's a life with someone you trust." I clinked my glass against his, the sound clear and bright in our new, empty home. "To us," I said. We drank the champagne, and in that quiet moment, I knew we had won more than just a battle against my father. We had won our future. He had tried to make Liam small, to keep him in his shadow. But now, Liam was building his own legacy. And I was standing right beside him, not as my father's daughter, but as his partner. My father had wanted a toast to his ex-employee. He got one. It was the last one he would ever make in that world. And we were just getting started. The silence that followed his downfall was the most peaceful sound I had ever heard. He finally learned what it felt like to be irrelevant, and I finally learned what it felt like to be free.